You say, oh, I'm spending $500 a month going out. If you turn around and make a budget and your going out category is $50, the likelihood that you're gonna
work.
It's gonna work, right? And then the next month when you see that you spent $400, instead of saying, oh, I saved $100, you're gonna be focusing on, wow, I spent more than $50. Forget the budget. So the first thing is like, make sure that your budget is realistic and it includes some joyful things. If socializing is something you really, really enjoy to do, then make sure that there's a line for that in your budget and plan accordingly around it.
I'm trying to give me a bag. I'm trying to give me a bag. I'm trying to give me a bag. I'm trying to give me a bag.
What's up? You are now listening to FY Fly the podcast, and I'm your host, Hassan Thomas, along with Remy, and we are here to share tools on how millennials can budget, save, invest, and understand student debt and credit to achieve financial freedom. If you're a high school student, college student, or someone who's interested in gaining more financial insight, this podcast is for you.
I'm trying to give me a bag. I'm trying to give me a bag. I'm trying to give me a
What's up, my FY Fly folks out there? How y'all doing? I hope y'all doing all right. Welcome to the FY Fly podcast. My name is Hassan Thomas, aka the kid that did and the man that can, baby. And today, we're going to be chopping it up with Millennial Money Coach and the founder of Strategies and Teas, Miss Aitza Negron. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I love that intro.
Hey, you know I was going to turn you up, right?
Yes. Thank you.
For sure. You know, we like to come with the energy. We originally met at FinCon, but now we're here on FY Fly. And what we like to do, we like to skip the fluff and get right into the good stuff. How that sound?
I love it. I'm with it.
All right, bet. So, first thing I want to know is, were you always good with money? Or was there a turning point in your life where you were like, okay, now it's time to get right?
Listen, no. Short answer, no. I'm definitely not always good with money. The way I grew up, we didn't have a lot growing up. So when I tapped into wealth after college, I was like, I'm going to do all the things I couldn't do that, when I went to school, I heard all the stories of my classmates that they were able to do all those, travel, do all the things. And so I started to do that. And what that ended up was me having a lot of debt. I racked up a lot of credit card debt. I'm an accountant, right? I'm a CPA by background. So I also felt a lot of shame because I'm like, well, look at my career and here I am with debt. Like, so I had a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. And my turning point for me was about 6 years ago when I paid down, I think $15,000 in credit card debt. And then I racked up like $17,000 after I paid it down. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what is really causing me to do this when I already paid it off? And it's because I didn't get to the root cause. And then
what was that for you?
What was that?
Yeah, what was that root cause that you talked about? Because I want to know, I want to get back into the mindset of somebody that was in your position. Like, what do you think caused you to pay down the $15,000 and then run it back up to $17,000? Like, if you could jump back into that mindset, what was it? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going through that right now. That's why I'm asking.
For me, the mindset was I never had it, right? When I was younger, we didn't really travel too much. There was always the comment like, oh, turn the lights off. Like, we're no longer on welfare kind of mentality. And so even though for me, like, I didn't grow up on welfare, but that was the reality of, my sibling who was 8 years older than me. I allowed like those kind of limiting beliefs of there's not enough money. So when I had it, I'm going to take advantage of the things that I couldn't do before. So it was with me kind of stripping away the money is meant to move, right? Money's a tool and not to think about it that I'm not going to have it. I am going to have it. How am I stashing money away, saving it so it could grow for me? What am I doing to make my money last longer and still enjoy the things that I want to do? So I think it was shifting from that mindset of there's not going to be enough to there's more than enough to go around. I just need to manage it better. That was the shift.
That's actually huge because now that you say it, I feel like a lot of people deal with that. Okay, we didn't have a lot of money coming up. Now that we do got money, it's time to buy all of the things that we wish we could have bought, as a child, as a teenager, when we didn't have a lot of money. So you would say the way to kind of combat that is to switch your mindset because first, let's be realistic. If once we do come up on a lot of money, we are going to spend on some things. So let's just be realistic there. But one, we got to have a balance. And two, you believe it's the mindset shift that will help us like not blow all of it?
Yeah, no, it is. Because people always think like, I need more money. Like, I don't have enough. I need more. But if you can't manage what you have right now, the same thing's going to happen when you have more, right? Because now you're going to be in different circles. Lifestyle creep is a real thing when you kind of, the lifestyle around you is heightened. So you want to elevate yourself too. But when you understand that mindset of, hey, I can stash some money away and I could still have the things that I love, it's going to help you be sustainable. And that's one of the things I focus on is being sustainable with your money. When you're creating budgets, people always associate budgets are always negative, right? Budgets mean restriction.
Facts.
Budgets mean I can't have it, but budgets mean, yes, you can have it. It's a yes plan, right? It's just saying, maybe I can't have it right now, this moment, but in 3 years I can have it, right? It's all about reprioritizing instead of like sacrificing. It's reprioritizing what you need right now.
Okay, drop them bars on us then.
It's like all about you just shift how you even look at a budget and a spending plan. If you think I want to be wealthy, well, guess what? Wealthy people, they know where their money's at. Like they know exactly where their money is, and if it's not in an institution, they know who has it, right?
Come on.
So you got to think that way too. Like, I want to be wealthy. Well, what are the wealthy people doing? They know where their money is. They're making sure their money is moving and growing while they're asleep. Pajama money.
Come on, pajama money. Okay,
Money.
you ain't come to play today. So I want to know, because we're talking about budgets, and I feel like with money, budgets, it's literally just being intentional about the way that you're going to spend, save, and grow your money. That's what I feel like a budget is. It's not negative. It's not restrictive. So kind of talk to us about how you help people get on a budget, but also how do you help people stay on a budget?
Yeah. So for me, the first thing I do when I work with clients, always mindset, right? Mindset is like a foundation. And if you've been following me on Strategies and Tea, I'm a visual person. So if you're going to buy a house and they tell you, hey, this house has some cracks in the foundation, there's some termites in it, you might be like, I don't know. I don't really, let me look at the next house, right? So when you're thinking about, I'm going to plan a budget, well, what are the termites in your mind, right? What are the cracks in your mental foundation that are blocking you from achieving your financial goals or any goals, right? So you have to give yourself that grace, set some realistic goals. You say, oh, I'm spending, $500 a month going out. If you turn around and make a budget and your going out category is $50, the likelihood that you're going to
work,
right? And then the next month when you see that you spent $400, instead of saying, oh, I saved $100, you're going to be focusing on, wow, I spent more than $50. Forget the budget. So the first thing is like, make sure that your budget is realistic and it includes some joyful things. If socializing is something you really, really enjoy to do, then make sure that there's a line for that in your budget and plan accordingly around it. So that's something I tell people first, like assess where your money, like focus on your mindset first, really start understanding, like, what are some things I constantly tell myself? Like, if you always tell yourself, I'm always going to be in debt, no matter what, I'm always going to be in debt, then you're not going to have an issue swiping your credit card to accumulate more debt, because you're going to tell yourself, well, I'm always going to be in debt anyway. So mindset is number one. Number two, assess how you're spending your money, right? Take a look to see where your money is actually going. And three, make a budget that's realistic, right? Maybe it means that you reduce all of your other categories by, $100 instead of $300. That's okay.
Yeah.
Later, you can adjust that budget because it's a living document. It's not set in stone and you can't ever change it. But yeah, so as I would say, those are the first things that I help people when they're working on their budgets.
Okay. So first question I have is, how do you budget? Do you use spreadsheet? Do you use apps? What do you think is the best way to budget in your opinion?
I think it definitely depends on your own lifestyle. So when I first started budgeting, I did use a spreadsheet. I'm good with Excel, right? That I did it for work. So it was comfortable for me. True. For someone who is not very tech savvy or Excel friendly, I would say leverage some apps. There are definitely some apps that you can use that puts your budget right in your hand. But again, you have to be engaged, right? It's not one thing that, even if it's an Excel or an app, like you need to be checking it. It's not just set your budget and you never look at it again until 6 months from now. You want to look at your budget at least, maybe at the beginning every 2 weeks, because people say, oh, well, why can't I wait for the end of the month? Well, if you wait for the end of the month, you didn't give yourself room to make some adjustments to get close to the win, right? So if you're saying, okay, I make my budget before the month starts, halfway through the month, I'm going to check. All right, well, my grocery category, I put $250, I'm already at $200. Now you can consciously say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I can only spend like $50 more on groceries, right? Like you give yourself wiggle room to either make adjustments, right? So let's say you put a lot of money in your clothing budget category, but your groceries category, you're running low. You could say, well, I'm actually not going to shop for the rest of the month. So I can move some of this money from clothing to groceries, right? There's some flexibility there. Gym. And then at the end of the month, now you can compare where you go. If you just wait until the end of the month, now you're just going to say, well, this is what I did. Let me try again. So definitely understand what's your personality and make those adjustments to make sure it's comfortable for you.
Okay, that's a gem right there. To kind of like with a sport, during halftime, the coach gonna go in there, make adjustments, make halftime adjustments, so they can get out there for the last 2 quarters of the game and win the
Mm-hmm.
game. Same thing with your budget. You make your budget in the beginning of the month. Life happens, things happen. Now, the second week into the month, you got to rearrange some things, reorder some things, reprioritize some things, as you said.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you.
And I think
And
that's,
we
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was saying that's a good analogy to sports because I was a cheerleader, right, in college. Like when we go on the competition mat, you got 2 minutes and 30 seconds. We didn't just show
Hmm.
up. Like there's months of practice of changing people changing positions, similar, I guess, to football too, right? So you gotta
Yeah.
move some people around to make it work. So those are your budget category. That's where you might have to shift some things around to make it work. But it takes time, and some people you don't see the back end, right? But there is some work in the back end that you have to do so that when you show up
Hmm.
on the field, like you're doing it right.
I love that. I love that. And the second part I wanted to go and touch on is what you said about like planning your fun and including that into your budget.
Yeah.
So describe to us, how do you like to plan your fun? Like, is it okay? In the next 6 months, I want to go to Cancun. Let me create a savings fund. Like, how do you personally save for your fun and plan for your fun?
Yeah. So for big things like trips, or for example, like my birthday was yesterday. So what I do is birthday things, I already plan that in my budget. So birthday
Mm-hmm.
2024, I have a line in my budget, a sinking fund. Or for those of you who are wondering, what is a sinking fund? It's basically
Mm-hmm.
where you determine an amount that you need to save. You figure out by when you need that money by, and then you divide it by the number of months or your number of pay periods. So you can start
Mm-hmm.
putting a little bit of money in every time. And that sinking fund doesn't only have to be for trips, but it could also be used for, let's say you have an HOA and you have to pay that HOA fee once a year. Like those are some expenses that they're coming up,
Yeah.
them in a sinking fund. So that's kind of how I plan for those big fun activities. And then I just have a general sinking fund for gifts, like celebrations, because there's birthdays, there's things I got invited to. So I just
Mm-hmm.
I look at how I spent my money last year and the year before. And then there I'll either decide, okay, I'm gonna either keep it the same or I'm gonna bump it up by $100, $200 for the next
Mm-hmm.
year. And then I break it down so that it's not such a big ordeal when that event or that activity pops up. I've actually been setting some money aside little by little. So
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about it when it comes up. And I'm not leaning on the credit card to cover that expense because I already have the cash saved.
We are completely aligned into that. I was speaking to some students at Elizabeth City State University, and they were all about to go to spring book, but they didn't have enough money. So I told them what they can do is, as you mentioned, with the sinking fund, start saving for spring break in October, November.
Yep.
Figure out how much money you need. As you said, divide that by the months you have left, and then you'll be able to have that money when spring break comes around. And the huge benefit of that is you don't have to pull from your rent check. You don't have to pull from your check that needs to go pay tuition. You don't have to pull from any of those expenses. Now you have a wad of money that you can use to pay for the ticket, pay for the hotel. You're gonna need some new clothes when you go to Miami or wherever you're gonna go for spring break.
Yeah.
So you have some money left over to pay for those things compared to, like you mentioned, waiting until right before that trip comes. And now I'm like, oh, $400 for the ticket, $400 for the hotel. Like that's just kind of like changing the order that we do things.
Exactly. And also don't seek perfection. Like I feel like this stress around perfection and everything else, like
Hmm.
it kind of blocks us from moving forward. So to those of you who are watching, you're like, well, what if it ends up being more? It might end up being more money, but at least you have 80% of the money already saved. And instead of having to
Facts.
dish out, $2,000, you're like, okay, I have to dish out $300. Like what a relief going into a trip, knowing that you didn't have to stress like 2 weeks
Hmm.
before to make the 2,000, and all you have to do is figure out how am I going to get an additional 300 to cover the difference, right? Like that way you're going into your trip, you live in life, you're not going in there stressed and having this like financial anxiety. And then when you
Yeah.
come back from your trip, it's stress on like, well, now I have to pay all that off because I didn't have any of it saved, right? So
Fact.
there's more, there's that bringing it back to that mindset benefit by just planning ahead. and reducing your stress when it comes to those things.
And I think that's what we can help people start making changes, because yes, it's cool to tell people the pros and the benefits, but we also, unfortunately, we have to tell people the cons and the negative things that can come from not doing these positive activities, because honestly, that's what makes people jump. Like if we know, oh man, I won't be able to go to spring break if I don't save money. Guess what? We're gonna start saving money because we want to go on spring break. So
Right.
we gotta tell people the pros, of course, but we also gotta let them know, hey, if you don't do this positive activity, you're gonna be stuck at home in March watching everybody on Instagram and Snap while you at home.
Right.
But the second thing you mentioned when you talked about the debt, I wanted to ask, because there's a big, like, there's like two sides, especially in this financial literacy world. There's like two sides of debt pay down. There's one where you focus completely on the debt pay down and you're not investing and saving, and then there's another one where you're investing, saving, and paying down debt at the same time.
Yeah.
So which side are you on? Kind of touch on that for us.
So for me, I think I'm in the middle, right? It definitely depends. I would say if you feel comfortable starting to invest a little bit more money in the market, you can do so. But if you have a lot of high interest debt right now, aside from those retirement investment accounts, I don't think it makes sense, right? Because you're paying more interest. Like that debt is costing you more money than any investment is going to make you, unless you kind of hit a gold mine. But that's like, we don't know if that's going to happen, right? Because if we did, we'd all be rich.
I actually really do like, honestly, I haven't heard it being broken down like that, but whenever you do compare it, boom, the interest that's working against you is higher than the interest that you're gaining from your investments. So, but on the other end, why I do understand the opposite end, and why it makes sense why you said you're in the middle. You don't want to miss out on those years of having your money compound and grow for you and work for you. Like you said, what'd you say, pajama money?
That pajama money. Yeah.
So let's stick on that debt pay down method. How did you specifically do it, and kind of like how do you teach your clients to pay down debt and kind of alleviate that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. When you're thinking about paying down your debt, really, again, what's your lifestyle? If you're someone who you need a win, like getting a win just encourages you. You're just like, all right, if I get this win, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep pushing. Then the snowball method, that's an ideal method for you, right? And so the snowball method is where you're gonna organize. You're gonna take all your debt that you have, and by all of that, I mean like if you have multiple different creditors or lenders, etc. You're gonna organize them by the lowest outstanding balance first to the highest outstanding balance. And you're going to focus, you're going to pay your minimums on all of them. We're not going to ignore the other ones. Pay the minimum on all of them. But if you look at your expenses and you're like, hey, like I can reposition $50 from, this spending category towards my debt. Any additional money you're going to put towards that lowest balance first. So again, that's for you if you like the win, if the quick win just encourages you and motivates you. If you're someone who says, okay, I don't need a quick win, but I'm just trying to save as much money as possible on this debt, then you might want to consider the avalanche method. The avalanche method is where you're going to take those same debts, but instead of organizing them by your balance, you're going to organize them by your interest rate. So your highest interest rate first, all the way down to your lowest interest rate. Again, still paying your minimums, but when you have any additional money, any extra money that comes to your hands, or you decide, hey, I'm going to actually dedicate, $50, you could dedicate $10, whatever you can dedicate. You're going to focus towards that highest interest rate item first. And that's going to allow you to save on interest. When I started my financial freedom journey, go ahead.
I said, which one did you do?
I started with the snowball method. Yeah, I started with the snowball method to pay off my debt. And then once I started feeling comfortable, I did what's called like a fireball method, which is a hybrid between the snowball and the avalanche method. So in this hybrid approach, you basically take all your debts, you organize them by highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. Then you split the list in half. So the way I split the list is anything that's single digit was one group, and anything that was double digit was the second group. And then I focused on paying, it sounds complicated, but I focused on paying the highest interest, in the second group of highest interest rates, the lowest balance of that category first. but that was after I got a few wins by doing the snowball method. I felt more comfortable. And now I'm like, okay, I feel more comfortable, but how can I still get the quick wins, but try to save a little bit more on interest? So that's the approach that I took.
Got you. I love that. I love that. And we talked about a lot of great gems here today, but we can't have you on here and not ask our famous final question. So I'm going to say 2 quotes and I need you to let me know which one is more accurate in your opinion. All right?
Okay.
All right, best. So the first one is more money, more problems, like Biggie. Shot him out. And the second one is money can't buy happiness. Which one do you agree with most?
Money can't buy happiness.
Ooh, you didn't even hesitate. Why is that?
So there's actually, now I'm having tip of the tongue syndrome, but there's actually a psychological thing. But when you have more money, ultimately your inner joy, that's your baseline, right? So you can get a ton of money. And let's say you are out of debt and you buy the big house and you do all the things. Eventually, all those things will become your new normal, right? So you're going to go climb the mountain, but then it's going to come back to your new normal. And so if your baseline of what you find brings you joy, you don't have that, or you haven't figured that out, that new normal is just going to make you feel down all over again. And I think sometimes the word content, right? Content has this negative, like people are like, oh, you're content. They look at it bad, but like content doesn't mean you don't want to become more. Content just means like, you know what? Like I'm good with what I have right now. I'm still going to pursue more, but I'm good. And I think we need to go back to like, what does content really mean? And no, it doesn't mean negative. It doesn't mean you're not going to aspire to do bigger and better things, but it just means like, I'm good where I'm at. And so when you aspire to those bigger and better things and that becomes your new normal, you're still going to look at that and say, I'm good where I'm at. Like I have what I have.
Being content, but not satisfied.
Right. I guess. Yeah. Like you're content, but you can still aspire to be more. Like if you want to. But it's not something that it's like, I need to do this or I'm not enough. Like, it's more like, I want to do this because I am enough. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
A little shift in how we say things.
Yeah, you gotta be intentional in your thoughts and your words. And I just want to, thank you for joining the show, but also thank you for just the mindset and the way that you think about money and the importance that you put on mindset, because I even like what you said there with the baseline, and the picture that you described, like when you were talking, I'm literally picturing a mountain, you climbing a mountain, and now it's sinking back to your baseline because you've reached, okay, yeah, now you got the big house, the new car, but now you want a new car, a bigger house. You see somebody else with a bigger house. Your neighbor got a bigger house. Now you want one.
Yep.
So now I can see if you're not, joyful at the baseline, it will just go up and then down, and then you'll have to try to go back up, and then it will just be an endless cycle. So I thank you for like breaking it down like that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think it's important. Like sometimes we want all these great things, but we don't think about it. Like we need to take a step back sometimes and really think, what does that mean for us? And if I'm not satisfied right now when I've accomplished so much already, I can't like take a moment to acknowledge the things that you've already accomplished. Like you've already made it. Like you've already decided, those watching, like you've already decided to work on your money. That's why you're watching this podcast right now. Like, if we can't accept those things at this moment and stage, like, are you going to be able to accept it later? Same thing with money. Like if you can't manage your money right now, are you going to be able to manage it later when you have more? Like maybe.
But this was great. This was great. Again, thank you so much. And if you have any final words, any final takeaways, go ahead and also let them know where to reach you.
Yeah. So I guess final words is remember to give yourself grace wherever you are on this journey. I believe that we're all on the same path. We're just in different stages of that path. So give yourself grace. Know that you're unlearning things that you've been practicing for however old you are. That's how long you've been practicing it, because we pick things up even as young children. So give yourself that grace. Keep it pushing. It's the little things every day. And if you want to follow me, I am at strategiesandT on all platforms. And you can visit me at strategiesandT.com.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This was great. Like I said, for everybody listening, I know we talked about a lot here today, but if you can pinpoint 1 or 2 gems that you can actually use today and implement today, I promise you those small incremental habits will have large results over time. So thank you again. You killed it. And to everybody listening, y'all already know we need you to stay safe, stay invested, and stay FY fly. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you all for listening to FY Fly the podcast, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Tune in next week for more financial literacy insights with our special guests. Please visit our website, social media platforms, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at FYI Fly Podcast. That's FYI FLI Podcast. See y'all next week and stay fly.